Something else that's not right enough. I don't understand. I said last night that I thought that Penny Wong seemed to be going to the Middle East not to show solidarity with Israel, but to show solidarity with all the countries around Israel, some of which want to wipe Israel from the map.
You got it right.
And then now suddenly she's gone to Israel and she's showing solidarity with Israel.
Don't believe it.
When you're showing solidarity with everyone, Joe, are you showing solidarity with anyone?
This is the thing, isn't it? So, how solid can you be solid with everybody if the two people you're solid with want to
are currently trying to, yeah.
But yes, no, she has met with the hostage families, and she said, I stand with you, and she's also said that she stands with Israel, or that Australia stands with Israel and Australia stands with the hostage families.
And she said this just off the back, fresh from Jordan, where she pledged another 22 million taxpayer dollars to Gaza. I always thought it was illegal to fund terrorist groups because we know exactly where that aid's going, which is exactly where all the other aid sent to Gaza goes, and that is to padding the pockets of Hamas. What is it with Western countries? There's the small matter of the $6 billion the US gave Iran just before the massacres of October. Then there was the $10 billion they just gave them in broad daylight for pretty inexplicable reasons week after the massacres. I mean, this seems to be a Western country thing. Wong did get something right, though, when she said, our nation stands in solidarity with Israel and with you, talking to friends and family of the hostages. Yeah, our nation does, Wong, but you sure as heck don't, and you're not fooling anybody.
Well, if this government stands in solidarity with the hostages, why did it take 3 months to go and visit the hostages?
Yes,
why is she not going to the scene of the hostage taking?
Yeah,
why is she not watching the 45 minutes of vision showing what horrors the hostages suffered? Why not make the $21 million of aid conditional upon hostages being released? Why do so many senior government ministers make equivocal statements about Israel-Hamas?
Yeah,
and we can go on and on.
Too busy calling for ceasefire.
Another reason that they don't stand in solidarity with the hostages, why would you expect Israel to stop pursuing the hostage takers if you stand in solidarity with the hostages? No one's buying
when
this.
they still haven't given the hostages back.
Exactly.
I suppose the response to that would be, and you can judge for yourselves how, practical or clear-eyed it is, that the people you're trying to help with the humanitarian aid package don't have control over Hamas. They don't have control over the hostages, so they couldn't do that even if you tried.
That's true to an extent, Joe, but the fact is Gazan civilians took part in the hostage taking. They took part in celebrating the hostages, and some of them have guarded hostages, as we've found out from the testimony of those released. So this distinction between Hamas and Gazans is
that's right.
It's blurry, and that's being charitable.
The problem is which Gazans, and again, I've said that right from the very beginning. There's no sort of clear line between evil Hamas here and innocent.
Well, here's another inconsistency with the government, right? We stand in solidarity with the hostages, but this government is getting 1,000 Gazans out of Gaza before any of the hostages are out of Gaza. So there's another inconsistency with this government where they're really speaking out of both sides of their mouth.
Well, they're getting the people out they can. This is the problem. I think people in Gaza who certainly are Australian citizens or who are in real danger and we know aren't security threats, I'm all for them being got out of there, being put in refugee camps if they're Australian citizens, being repatriated here, and even if not, getting humanitarian visas. That's what it's for. I think the real problem is that the government doesn't seem to have a particularly clear line on where it stands on this issue. And I think Wong's comments and her visit seem to demonstrate that. I think it's a little bit indicative of what the government is doing on other issues as well. Like we mentioned the supermarket price gouging, not a good idea 12 months ago, but the perfect silver bullet 12 months later. Stage 3 tax cuts, dare I say it. The government seems to be sort of feeling its way through these issues almost for the first time without having sort of approached them with a clear idea of this is who we are, this is what we stand for, this is what we believe.
So let me ask you this, because you're a Labor man. Does it seem a little bit to you like Anthony Albanese really wanted to be Prime Minister, and so he's a bit like the dog that's chasing the car and finally catches the car and then doesn't quite know what to do with it?
Yeah, but
it feels
a lot of
like
Prime Ministers have been like that. I mean, Malcolm Turnbull was a clear case in point. He blew away, record high popularity with a 6-month inquiry into tax reform and then decided not to do anything at all. And it was kind of like, so what did you want to do? You wanted to be Prime Minister your whole life. Why? What's the point? And, but I don't think it's necessarily that. I think Albo well, I can tell you for a fact, Albo was almost as surprised as anyone when he ended up being Prime Minister. Everyone thought Shorten would win in 2019. I don't think...
Yeah, he had 3 years to get over that surprise.
I don't think it was that... Yeah, but again, I think...
The Australian public grow more and more surprised.
I've said this before, though. I think Albo coming from the left is dealing, has gone from dealing with party machine issues and, doing the numbers for state conferences and federal and national conferences and that sort of stuff, that kind of backroom wheeling and dealing sort of stuff, that practical kind of, butting heads together, say, right, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and we're all going to shake hands at the end, everything's going to be fine. Once you then get onto the world stage and suddenly you're dealing with issues that are way, way bigger, and it's not just like a form of words about Palestine in a motion at national conference so that you can do a deal on AUKUS over here on the other side.
Yeah, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I am just a Labor Party hack.
No, I think he's actually come to... And this is why I think he's been... for someone, certainly for someone who's come from the left, he's been way stronger on Israel than any of his colleagues in the left faction.
Well, I'm sorry, I just think it's appalling to think that he's stronger than anyone in his party on Israel.
From the left faction, there are plenty of others on the right who are...
It's been absolutely dismal from start to finish.
I just think back to that. We covered a press conference live on the late debate last year where Anthony Blinken and Netanyahu held a joint conference not long after October 7. And I remember Blinken saying this is a time where we need moral clarity. And there's been absolutely none of that from the government at all.